What's going on, guys? Darrell here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, you read the title, we're talking rookie running backs, and you don't need me to tell you that rookie running backs can take a regular roster and turn it into a championship roster overnight. Unlike in previous seasons, there isn't that bona fide gem in the first round that everybody should target, but with that means that the people who do the more research are going to benefit more from targeting the right rookie. The athletic profiles are a bit underwhelming, but the landing spots are good if you know what to look for. So in this video, we're going to go over the top rookies that you should target or avoid for the 2019 season. Before we do get into the video though, a bit of housekeeping. Guys, take a moment and look at the link in the description box below. Check out our draft package. Bar none, best in the industry for the price. And we continue to add on to it. I'm going to run through the highlights, but you have 2019 rankings and projections as we head into the draft. Those will span throughout the entire season. We're talking over 400 players. And yeah, we have risk ratings. Everybody has risk ratings, but do they have a surgeon and a physician who is going into those tougher cases to let you know if that player is a bust or if they're value based on their draft stock? No, we have Daniel Khalil working around the clock to make sure you guys have the best possible information available to you. And oh, did I mention that we have the machine learning model that predicts NFL games based on the spread, over, under, or money line? And that's just an added benefit to you because you're going to be a member for the whole 2019 season. Our draft package is bar none loaded with information that most competitors cannot offer because we want you guys to have the most information available to dominate your leagues. And if you're interested in that, take a moment, look at the link in the description box below, and just read through the benefits. I don't have time to go through all of them on today's video, but I do want you guys to have access to it while the price is at the lowest possible of the offseason. So take a look at that, but let's get into the stat of the day. Today's stat of the day, since we're talking rookie running backs, is which rookie running back on the 2018 season had the best receiving grade per Pro Football Focus. Now we're talking over 25 targets, okay? So no guy with 2 targets is going to qualify, but which rookie in the 2018 season had the best receiving grade per Pro Football Focus? Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. But with that, let's get into the video. And what better player to start with than Josh Jacobs, who was drafted 24th overall by the Oakland Raiders. What do we know with a high draft capital? It results in a long leash. A long leash on a team that already has incapable backs behind him. You have Chris Warren, Doug Martin, and Jalen Richard. Jalen Richard, the pass-catching back. Chris Warren never really has put it together. And Doug Martin, let's be honest, his best days are long behind him. So he's primed to have an opportunity to start the season on an ascending offense. An offense in which they brought in Tyrell Williams to stretch the field and Antonio Brown as a possession guy to hopefully make a push this year to have a respectable offense. Josh Jacobs will be a key part of that. Let's start by talking about Jacobs as an individual contributor, and we'll start with his athletic profile, which is no secret. It is underwhelming. In fact, he ran a 4.69, which is abysmal, and his 35th percentile burst was the highest of all athletic metrics and is on the very low side. So he's not going to wow you with his athleticism, but when you watch him on film, he is extremely versatile. Now, I'm not here to sugarcoat it and say everything's good with him, but I will give him credit where credit is due, and he does have excellent vision. I've seen him on several occasions shake off tacklers, especially one-arm tacklers, and churn his legs for those extra yards. So he's a grinder. He can line up as a receiver and has made several plays downfield as a receiver, plays that we don't see normally prospects make coming out of college. He had over 12 yards per reception due to his ability to be able to line up as a receiver. So if the Oakland Raiders decide to use him in that facet, he's going to succeed. And in today's NFL, today's fantasy world, you need a running back that can catch passes and be versatile. Which poses the question, what about pass protection? Well, I will say that pass protection, he did look lost, especially in clear passing situations. There were numerous times he wasn't sure which defender to pick up. They didn't result in major losses, but it is an area he is going to need to improve upon. The best pass protector, which is Marshawn Lynch, is no longer on the team. So I see this as a part of his game that they're going to look to develop, especially considering There were several touchdowns that Alabama had due to his blocking downfield. Now, it didn't necessarily come directly from his pass protection, but as a downfield blocker, he excelled and opened up lanes for many of his teammates to be able to make big plays, and I do feel like that is a skill set of his that has been overshadowed, and I think the Raiders can continue to develop upon that. So the real question is Josh Jacobs a good target come draft day? And the answer is yes. Right now, though, he is going at value, which is a third-round running back taken by the guys like Aaron Jones and Kerryon Johnson, both of which we are high on. So to say he's a must-target above those guys, I don't think we can say that. But what I will say is his workload's guaranteed. If he rises, be wary. I think there are better targets, but it's very unlikely that he can disappoint your roster, okay? So overall, out of the rookies, he's a safe guy, but he's priced to sell. But more oftentimes than not, there's going to be other guys in your leagues that are willing to pay more for him than you are, and that's okay. The next rookie running back we're talking about is David Montgomery, who finds himself in a good position leading the way for Chicago, taking over the vacated spot of Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard clearly didn't fit the mold of this offense because he wasn't a strong pass catcher, something David Montgomery can excel in at this position. But with that, his overall touch totals are going to be a bit capped because while he is fighting against Mike Davis, which isn't much competition, he is going to be competing against Tariq Cohen for pass catching duties. Tariq Cohen is obviously going to be getting the main portion of these pass catching duties, but you can't have a specialist like Tariq Cohen on the field at all times, which is why Jordan Howard struggled, because they wanted a guy who could catch the ball on the field when it wasn't a clear passing down. David Montgomery, he's the next man up, and he is primed to succeed. That's not to say that he can't handle the full workload, because he has had over 250 touches in each of the past 2 seasons. So if anything were to happen to Tariq Cohen, David Montgomery and his fantasy value would skyrocket. And we're talking about a guy who is, 5'6", 190 pounds. There's no doubt that David Montgomery would be the clear pass catching back in this offense. So that's some handcuff value for you. Similarly to Josh Jacobs, though, he's not an athletic monster or anything, and he's not going to jump off the board in any singular area, but he is one of those consistent guys who can handle a heavy workload and produce in every facet of the field. Pass blocking, pass catching, north-south running, goal line, all you can think of, he can do it. And that's a guy that the Chicago Bears needed to get into the mix, and they got him with David Montgomery. His high touch totals will put him at an increased risk of injury, but unlike some of the other running backs that are going to be taken in this stage of the draft, he is actually on an offense that's projected to be top 10. And the running backs on top 10 offenses guaranteed to get goal line work, or at least projected to get goal line work, have all been taken earlier in the draft. So this is a guy where you can get some value from, you can extract value. It's not completely risk averse because he has Tariq Cohen taking the receiving upside and Mike Davis competing for touches. But with the Chicago Bears, where it's a top offense and we don't know which player or which piece that we want on our team, David Montgomery is one of the safer bets. The next player we're going to talk about is Darrell Henderson of the Los Angeles Rams, and there's not much to say about him. As we know, he's backing up Todd Gurley, and his knee issues, the arthritis, is going to limit the amount of touches he can get, meaning Darrell Henderson is going to have a shot at touches early on. If he can succeed, he could carve out a bigger and bigger role as the season goes on, and in games in which the Rams are blowing out the competition, best believe Darrell Henderson is going to be the next man up. The only competition behind him is Malcolm Brown, who they did re-sign, so they do like. Maybe they like him because of his familiarity with the playbook, or maybe he has shown stuff in practice that we have not seen. But he is going to make short work of Malcolm Brown with his 8.9 yards per carry and 6.16 yards after contact per attempt. Darrell Henderson is a strong talent. He did come out of a smaller school with less competition, so the defenses that he did face were less than the toughest opponents, but he did play UCF and he shined in that game, so we can't discredit all of his work. The real bet that you're going to be making with this is how much do you believe in Todd Gurley for 2019? If you don't believe me, draft Darrell Henderson with every opportunity you can, because he is going to be the guy to take over work for Todd Gurley if he misses time, or even if his workload's limited. However, if the game is on the line, believe me, Todd Gurley's going to be in the lineup, and if he does remain healthy or this whole knee issue is overblown, it's going to be a waste of a pick. But the amount of picks that we waste in this stage of the draft is extremely high, and to have a potential upside winning pick like Darrell Henderson is something we haven't seen in recent years, so there is some credit to that. To give an example of some running backs going around him, we have Tevin Coleman, Lamar Miller, Rashad Penny, and Latavius Murray. We are high on a couple of those running backs, but none of which have the upside that Darrell Henderson does. If your running back situation is really good and you're in the 6th round and Darrell Henderson is there, I might recommend taking him, but if you're drafting him as your RB2, it's too much risk to take on for your team. Now, this is a guy that also every little news blurb is going to change his ADP, so if you are interested in Darrell Henderson, you have to be sure to monitor that. But as it stands today, his value is pretty cut and dry. He's a high upside handcuff that can certainly perform in this offense if given the opportunity. The question is this opportunity going to be given to him as easily as we think it is, or are we going to be chasing the fantasy points with him on our bench into week 8 and 10? The next running back we're going to talk about is Miles Sanders of the Philadelphia Eagles, who finds himself in a disappointing landing spot coming in with Jordan Howard and the Eagles. Clearly, he's not going to be the early down guy or the goal line back, but he does have the ability to take over pass catching roles immediately. On top of that, he does have ideal size and speed. He's 5'11", 211 pounds. He runs a 4.49 40. And he had some big shoes to fill coming out of college, filling in for Saquon Barkley, and he did quite well. He did enough to be drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, who didn't need a running back, to draft him in the 2nd round. So, I see a path for Miles Sanders to be a fantasy contributor this year, but it is going to take an injury. It's going to take an injury, not to the backups, but it's going to take an injury to Jordan Howard, because I don't think there's enough meat on the bone for this offense for a pass-catching back alone or a change of pace back alone to succeed enough to be a consistent producer for your fantasy team. But I think the same thing does apply to the Jordan Howard role. I don't think that this team is interested in giving the reins to one guy. They've shown that in the past that they want to have a running back by committee, and that's going to hurt both backs. But the most talented back in this backfield is Miles Sanders, and there's a chance he can win out on his own. But I do think he is one injury away from being a top 20 guy, and for that, he is worth a draft pick, but you're not drafting him on his immediate value. This is a draft and stash with the upside of certain things going his way, and if that happens, you have a guy that can help win you your fantasy league. On his own, I don't see that happening, and for that reason, I don't think he's a steal whatsoever. And he's going in the 7th round, which is a bit pricey, but if he does fall, I can see him having a very secure role on your fantasy team so long as you draft him in order to sit on the bench. So the last guys we can run through quick, because these are going to be your lottery picks. These are the guys that I actually think you have most value with in the 2019 season drafting, because none of these guys are going to be drafted as starters, and they all have the potential to be something bigger than their draft cost. The first running back is going to be Devin Singletary, who is one of the most talented backs coming out of this draft class. Unfortunately, he landed in Buffalo, which can be seen as a good thing and a bad thing. There's a lot of competition, but the competition is very old. Between their first 3 starting running backs, they have a combined age of over a century, and like I said, he is very talented. Being on an offense behind Josh Allen, who is a playmaker, a guy who can really play some backyard football and let plays develop, that's going to help the running back position, but we did not see that come to fruition last year. So drafting him on an offense that's not projected to score a lot of points, it's not a high upside choice. So for me, I am probably going to have 0 shares of Devin Singletary, which hurts me because he is one of the most talented backs coming out of this year's draft class. But moving on, we go from a pick we aren't excited about to a pick we are very excited about in Damien Harris of the New England Patriots. And I love these guys who get drafted out of committee approaches out of college because they become very underrated when they come into the NFL, and Damien Harris is no exception. He's a very talented back finding himself into a situation which has, on paper, no opportunity, right? You have Rex Burkhead, Sony Michel, James White. Where is there room for Damien Harris? Well, the deeper you look, none of these guys have proven to stay healthy. Sony Michel is literally graded as the second highest rated risk for injury out of any running back in the league. Who do you think is going to take over that role? Rex Burkhead? No. It's going to be Damien Harris, and Damien Harris can produce. He has a little tread on the tire, and he has big playmaking potential, especially as a pass catcher. Need I say any more? If you can take him as a high upside lottery pick, you're doing your team a really good justice, because Damien Harris can pay off as early as week 3. The next two players I'm going to talk about have very similar value to me, and that's Raekwon Armstead and Alexander Madison. Just talk about Armstead. He is going to be the backup of the Jacksonville Jaguars and taking over if anything happens to Fournette. As a rusher, he's 5'11", 220. He does have top-end speed, and he has had a few injuries in college, but the only competition that he has is Alfred Blue and Thomas Rawls. So to think that he can't be atop the depth chart is completely silly. The only problem is he's completely unproven, and I do have a concern with the way that he carries the ball. He could definitely be a fumbler. He has questionable ball carrier vision, ran into his offensive line on multiple occasions, but opportunity usually trumps ability, and I think Armstead is going to have an opportunity to succeed in 2019 if anything does happen to Fournette. Similarly, I think Alexander Madison, who is more filling the role of a body, I don't think he is exceptional in any area as well. But with the way that Dalvin Cook gets injured, you do need to have the backup. Now, I'm not saying to have him as a handcuff, so if you draft Dalvin Cook, don't draft Alexander Madison, but he is literally the only guy there. So if anything were to happen, you have a guy who is on one of the top offenses that is known to pass the ball to the running back position, and Alexander Madison could be that guy, and that holds immense value, especially for a late round pick. So both of these guys I value similarly, to where I don't think their talent is going to take them above the guys ahead of them, but both of the guys ahead of them are very injury prone, meaning they are likely to see touches for the 2019 season. For that, if you can get them as lottery picks, it's a steal, but just know it's going to be one of those bench and stash positions where you're hoping for something to happen, but until then, don't expect any fantasy points. But I do have one sleeper for you guys that nobody's really talking about at this point, but could really pay off. And that's Benny Snell Jr., who is currently going undrafted. And in the fantasy community, I don't think he's on any radars. And he's not athletically gifted, but neither are most of the running backs that are being taken in this class. But what he does have is an opportunity to have touches on a Steelers offense. An offense that is known to give all the touches to one back. Anything happens to James Conner, do you think Jalen Samuels is going to be the workhorse? No. It's going to go to the next man up who has 3-down capabilities, and that's Benny Snell. Benny Snell also has the potential to take over carries. Now, I'm not saying that it's a likely situation because James Conner knows this offense like the back of his hand. James Conner may in fact be the more talented back of the two. He certainly proved a lot last season. But what I will say is that Benny Snell is a grinder. He has had a long college career playing in all facets of the game and passes every eye test imaginable. I challenge you, go look up Benny Snell and his college tape and tell me you don't think that this guy has a chance to supplant James Conner in 2019. Now, I'm not saying it's likely, but what I am saying is that I strongly believe if anything were to happen to James Conner, Benny Snell would be the guy that everybody should take off of waivers, and it's not going to be Jalen Samuels or any other back on the roster. Benny Snell would be the guy. And with that, that's going to complete our video of the rookie running backs to target and avoid. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.